Welcome back to botany class. In the previous class, we discussed ecological factors. Let's continue the same ecological factors. Previous class you studied abiotic factors, includes climatic factors, edaphic factors and topographic factors. Today let's begin with biotic factors. Biotic factors. What's meant by biotic factors? Biotic factors, biotic, you know the meaning biotic as living. So biotic factors are interactions between the living organisms. In ecology there is an interrelationship between biotic and abiotic community. So here biotic factors, so many biotic factors influence interactions between biotic factors, that means living organisms, including plants as well as animals. So living organisms, the plants and animals which influences the ecology, that is biotic factor. Today you are going to study about ecology, the biotic factors in ecology. What are the biotic factors? These plants and animals or these living organisms interaction each other. The plants which lives as a community which influences one another. Likewise the animal species also affect the ecosystem. So it's broadly classified. The biotic factors are classified into two different types. They are positive interactions and negative interactions, which is broadly classified into two: positive interaction and negative interaction. So first learn about what are the biotic factors. The biotic factors are classified into two types. Positive interaction. What's biotic factors? Interactions between the living organisms like plants and animals. The plants influence one another as well as the animals, which affects the ecosystem. So this positive and negative. What is meant by positive and negative interaction? In positive interaction, some interactions, both the organisms, in this interactions two organisms are involved. Among these two, both are benefited. Both organisms are benefited is called as positive interaction. Negative interaction, one is among these two organisms, interaction between two organisms, one is affected, another one neither affected nor harmed. One is benefited or neither affected or here negative interaction, any one of which one is benefited, another one neither benefited nor harm, that is negative interaction. The positive interaction, both are having symbiotic relationship, both are benefited, there is no harm at all, that is positive interaction. So depend upon this positive and negative interaction, these are again classified into different types. So this positive interaction which is classified into mutualism and commensalism. Here two different types, mutualism and commensalism. Positive interactions are two types, mutualism and commensalism. Negative interactions. These negative interactions are classified into different types. They are predation, parasitism, competition and amansalism. Predation, parasitism, competition and amansalism. So this is the flowchart. First you learn this. What are the biotic factors? First you learn this flowchart. This is very important, 5 mark question. Biotic factors. What are the biotic factors? It's classified into positive and negative interaction. First, what is biotic factor? Interaction between living organisms like plants and animals. So plants are animals which interact each other, either plant to plant or animal to animal, or plants and animals. Two organisms interact each other. These interactions are positive and negative. In positive interaction, both are benefited. Negative interaction, it is harmed. One is harmed or other is benefited, or both are harmed. So likewise, it is classified into positive interaction and negative interaction. This positive interaction again classified into mutualism and commensalism, and the negative interactions are predation, parasitism, competition and Amansalism. So these all are 2 mark questions. What is meant by positive interaction? What is meant by negative interaction? What is mutualism? What is commensalism? What is predation, parasitism, competition as well as Amansalism? First learn all these names. Now let us see one by one what is meant by positive interactions. Positive interactions or interactions among interaction between 2 different species. Among this, in mutualism, both the species are benefited. But commensalism, look at this tablet column. Here mutualism and commensalism, positive interactions are derived, or it is classified into 2 different types based on its benefit and effect. The mutualism, you know the term mutualism, mutual relationship among 2 different species. So interactions between 2 species. In mutualism, both the species are benefited. Positive, both are positive. Positive interactions, in mutualism, 2 organisms are involved. Interactions between 2 different species. These 2 species are benefited is called as positive interaction. So what are the examples? There are some examples. There are some symbiotic relationship. You know that bacteria, Rhizobium is one of the example, mutual relationship in leguminous plants. In the leguminous plants, Rhizobium is the bacteria which lives in the root nodules of leguminous plants. If you take the root nodules of legumes, the leguminous plants which contains roots, in the root nodules which produces nodules. The roots of legume which produces nodules. These are nodules. Root nodule. This is leguminous plants. It is found in leguminous plant. Leguminous plants, the legumes, pea plants, pea varieties. Here the root, this is dicot plant, taproot system which contains root nodules. So this Rhizobium is the bacteria which is present in the root nodule. So this nodule which gives shelter to the bacteria, at the same time this bacteria fixes nitrogen and give it to the plant. So both are mutually benefited, it is not harm. This is one of the positive interaction. The term is mutualism. Both are mutually benefited, both the organisms. Interactions between 2 different species. Here what are the species? Rhizobium bacteria and the leguminous plant. Rhizobium and the leguminous plants are benefited. How it's benefited? Rhizobium which gets shelter in the root nodule, also it gets its food, but it is not harm. Similarly, this bacteria, Rhizobium, which fixes nitrogen and give to the plant. So both are mutually benefited. This is one example. Likewise, there are some other examples. Azolla. Azolla is a water fern. So this Azolla and Anabina is a cyanobacteria. There is a mutual relationship between Azolla and Anabina. Anabina cyanobacteria, blue-green alga. So this bacteria, this is a water fern present in the water fern, Azolla. So they have mutual relationship. Nostoc is one of the cyanobacteria which lives, which also Nostoc and Anthoceras. Anthoceras is the bryophyte. So this has mutual relationship, Nostoc and Anthoceras. Anthoceras is the bryophyte, so which fixes nitrogen, and both are mutually benefited. Likewise, lichen. Lichen is the association between algae and fungi. How it is benefited? This lichen, the alga and fungi. Algae, due to the presence of chlorophyll, it synthesize the process photosynthesis, it synthesizes its own food. But fungus, it lacks chlorophyll, it do not synthesize the food, it cannot synthesize because it lacks chlorophyll, but both are mutually benefited. This alga supplies food to fungus, and the fungus, the interwoven, the profusely branched hypha which moves here and there, and it collects water and give to algae. So this type of relationship or symbiotic association is lichen. That also positive interaction comes under mutualism. These all examples are mutualism. And another example, mycorrhiza. What's this mycorrhiza? This is the interrelation or interaction between roots of higher plants and the fungus. So fungus which in the root of higher plants, surrounding these roots of higher plants, there is a sheath of this fungus. So mycorrhizal relationship. So this fungus which degrade all the materials and rich in humus, so it supplies the food to the root, and the root gives shelter to this fungus. So both are mutually benefited, is called mycorrhiza. Then this Anabina in coralloid roots of gymnosperms, which also get a shelter. So these examples you write it for positive interaction mutualism. What are the examples for mutualism? There are Rhizobium, symbiotic relationship. These relationships we can say symbiotic relationship. Examples, what are the symbiotic relationship? Rhizobium with leguminous plants, Azolla, Anabina, Nostoc, Anthoceras, lichen. That is a mutual relationship between algae and fungi, and mycorrhiza with the roots of higher plants as well as the fungus. Mutualism. So second positive interaction is commensalism. What's meant by commensalism? So in commensalism, one is benefited, two, there is an interaction between two different species, two organisms, where or in which one is benefited, another one neither benefited nor harm. It may benefited or it is harm. So one is benefited, that association is commensalism. So this also one of the positive interaction, commensalism. So what are the examples of commensalism? Commensalism, it's found in epiphytic plants, epiphytes. You know that what are epiphytes? Epiphytes are the plants which lives and gets shelter to other plant, either tree or shrub. It gets shelter, most of the orchids. You know there are orchids, example orchids and lianas. They get shelter, but these plants are these epiphytes. Epiphyte, one of the example is Vanda. The leaf color is green, so chlorophyll pigment is there. These plants synthesize its own food because photosynthetic process is taking place because of the green leaf, presence of the green leaves. But only for support it needs another plant. So this orchid, if you are keeping it on other plant, other branches. It never harm to the host. So this epiphytic organisms, orchids, most of the orchids you may have seen that it's just get a shelter on the branches of higher trees, higher plants, and this has a specific roots. There are two different types of roots found in it, clinging root and the other, this clinging root, and this roots has a specific tissue called velamen tissue, spongy tissue, hygroscopic spongy tissue. This just hangs down, it do not penetrate into the tree, just these roots are hanging freely, and it absorbs the moisture from the atmosphere, nutrition and moisture it absorbs. So this roots absorbs moisture, and the leaf with the help of chlorophyll pigment synthesize its own food. So this type of organisms are called as epiphytic organisms. So one is benefited, this vanda or this orchid is benefited, it gets just a shelter alone, but it never harms. So that supporting plant is called as host. So this plant, supporting plant, is called as host, and this organism, epiphyte, is called as commensal. One which get benefited is called commensal, and the supporting plant is called as host. So this mutual relationship, one is benefited, another one neither benefited nor harm. Such association is called as commensalism. Second type of interaction is negative interaction. So this mutualism and commensalism, these all examples for this commensalism. And now negative interactions. Second type is negative interaction. There are two types, positive interaction, negative interaction. In negative interaction, they are again classified into predation, parasitism, competition, amansalism. Predation, you know, predatory animals, or some plants also predatory. Predation. What is this predation? Among these two, interactions between two organisms or two species, one is benefited, another one is harmed. So these are negative interaction. So one get harmed. The parasitism, predation, parasitism, and predation and parasitism. These two, in predation and parasitism, one is benefited, another one is harmed. But competition, both are harmed. Both the species are harmed, affected. And amansalism, one is harmed, another one is either benefited nor harmed. So this is the definitions. So when you learn this symbols, positive, negative, so you may learn the definitions of these terms. What is mutualism, what is commensalism, what is predation, parasitism, competition, and amansalism. So predation, what's meant by predation? Predation, this is the interaction between two organisms. One organism which kills and eats the other. So one will die. So one organism, one who kills the organism is called as predator, and another one is killed is called the prey. P-R-E-Y, prey. So it takes as its food. It kills one organism and takes its food. So one is benefited, it gets its food by killing other organism. So other is harmed. That's why predation, positive, one is benefited, another one harmed. In plants, you may see there are number of insectivorous plants. In the lower classes, you may learn different types of insectivorous plants. Example, pitcher plant. There is a pitcher plant, a Nepenthes. This diagram, look at this diagram. This is Nepenthes. In this, so predation, there are number of insectivorous plants. Drosera, sundew plant. Drosera, sundew plant. Nepenthes, pitcher plant, or Utricularia. So these all organisms are this comes under predation. How is predatory? this Nepenthes, this is the picture modifying part of the leaf lamina, which is modified into picture, and this parasitic organism, this no, this is not parasite, it is predatory. So this organism, this picture plant, insectivorous plants, which captures insects. This is the insect which captures insect and digests it in the fluid in its body, and it takes as its food for nitrogen deficiency. These plants, this Drosera and Nepenthes, the insectivorous plants which capture insects and digest it and consume. So this plant is benefited because it gets food, but the insect is killed. So that is harm. So one is benefited, another one is harm. Likewise, Drosera sundew plant. So this sundew plant which contains the tentacles which attracts the sundew in the sunlight, the fluid present in the tentacles which attracts the insects. Once the insect is captured, it stick on the sticky fluid, it cannot escape, the insect cannot escape. So this tentacles entangle and digest this insect and consume. So the plant is benefited, Drosera is benefited, and the insect is killed. So this type of relationship or association is predation. Then another example is parasitism. You know that parasites, there are number of parasites. The parasitic organisms, here parasites. Parasitism, there are these parasites are classified into two different types. Parasitic organisms which affects, one is benefited, another one is harm. So one is benefited, another one is harm. Example, there are two types of parasitism, total parasite and partial parasite. The parasitic organisms which completely depends upon the host. So here the parasitic organism either completely depend upon the host or partially depends upon the host. So depend upon this, there are two different types, holoparasitism, hemiparasitism, or it's called as total parasitism, total or partial. Total. Example, here two examples are there. Cuscuta, you know very well, in the lower classes you learn the plant Cuscuta, total parasite. One word question, what is the example of total parasite? Cuscuta is total parasite, but Viscum is partial parasite. Cuscuta, look at this diagram, this is Cuscuta. The entire plant, this is parasite, and this depends upon a host because there is no chlorophyll. Completely it's a twinner, and this lacks chlorophyll, it cannot synthesize its own food. So it's a totally, completely which depends upon the host. So this is the parasite, and it takes the food from the xylem, the vascular tissues. This is xylem and this is the host. So this takes the food from the vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, food and water, it depends upon the host. So total parasite. But Viscum is not like that. This is the diagram, Viscum. Viscum, partial parasite. Partial parasite, the leaves are green in color, so it's able to synthesize its food. But partially, through this Hastoria, it takes water, and only for partial part it depends upon the host. Another part it has the ability to synthesize its food. So partial parasite. Example, Viscum. So this parasitic organisms produces the Hastorial root. The root is called Hastoria. Through the Hastoria, it penetrates into the host and takes the food and water from the vascular tissue. What are vascular tissue? Xylem and phloem. So this is the example of parasitism. Learn all examples, Cuscuta and Viscum examples. Then another negative interaction is competition. In competition, both the organisms are harmed. Both the organisms are harmed is competition. So there is a competition among different organisms. What are the competitions? This competition also classified into intraspecific and interspecific. So, it is classified into intraspecific competition and interspecific competition. What's the difference among these two? Intraspecific competitions among the same species is intraspecific, plants to plants or animals to animal, intraspecific. But interspecific among different species. So, different species, intraspecific within the same species. So, this species in adaptations also similar. So, it compete to each other. So, competition for food, shelter, water and the migration, the area. For this all the organisms can compete each other. So, if in this in the example in the grassland all the grasses are together, grows together and food, water, everything is available. And in drought, when it is drought, there will be a competition for water. So, this intraspecific within the same species there is a competition. Interspecific with different species. If you take the forest ecosystem, in the forest there are herbs, shrubs as well as trees. So, these all plants lives together as a community. So, these plants, herbs, shrubs and the trees which compete each other for sunlight. So, if the species are more crowd in a particular area which competes for food, shelter, the place, area, migration place, dispersal of fruits and seeds and pollination. For this all it competes each other. And sunlight, the sunlight, direct sunlight, it cannot fall when the plants, the higher plants are hiding this small plants like herbs. So, this interaction, this is competition, both the organisms are getting harm, is competition. Then another negative interaction is called as Amansalism. So, in Amansalism, here one organism, this is the interaction in Amansalism is the interaction among two different species. One is inhibited by the other, inhibited, another one neither harm nor benefited, neither benefited nor harm. That type of relationship or is called as Amansalism. So, in Amansalism, here there are few examples. The one organism which inhibits. So, how it inhibits? It this inhibition by certain secretions. There are some allelopathic secretions secretes to inhibit. For example, penicillium notatum fungus which produces penicillin. So, this penicillin which inhibits the invade of certain bacteria like Staphylococcus. Staphylococcus is the bacteria. This penicillium which secretes penicillin which inhibits the entry of this bacteria Staphylococcus. So, one is harm, that means it inhibits, another one neither benefited nor harm. Another example for this Amansalism is trichoderma which inhibits the growth of the fungus, which also inhibits the growth of the fungus. Penicillium, Staphylococcus and roots of some this black walnut, roots of black walnut which secretes an alkaloid. The name of the alkaloid is junglone. Junglone is the alkaloid. So, this secretes alkaloid which inhibits the growth of the seedlings. So, it inhibits the growth of the seedlings of walnut. So, such examples are Amansalism. Then, another topic is co-evolutionary dynamics. There are certain co-evolutionary dynamics among the plants, that is interspecific relationship. The interspecific relationships are otherwise called co-evolution. So, one of the example is mimicry. So, you may heard this mimicry and myrmecophily and co-evolution. Mimicry, myrmecophily and co-evolution. What's this? Certain organisms in mimicry means similar. Certain organisms looks like similar organisms. For example, in plants, certain species of orchid, Ophrys is one of the orchid. This flower, the flower which looks like a female insect, so it attracts the insect for pollination. So it helps for pollination, co-evolution. So this looks like a female insect, so it attracts for pollination. So it's similar. So mimicry, this similar, it benefited. So this is co-evolution, one example. Another example is myrmecophily. You know that certain plants, mango, liches, and some other plants which get shelter, the ants get shelter in these plants. Mango, very common plant, mango. You may see the ants are living there. So this ants, myrmecophily. So these ants protect the plants. If ants are there, the other organisms cannot attack this plant. So this co-evolution, evolutionary relationship, co-evolution is seen in this myrmecophilous ants. Example, ants with certain plants. Certain plants like mango and this jamun plant and some other plants also, you may see this myrmecophilous. And another one, co-evolution. This co-evolution, there is a relationship between the organisms and the plants. This are evolution, generation after generation. When these organisms are mutually benefited, it produced in evolution. It leads to evolution. What are the examples? The length of the corolla. The corolla is the second word of the flower. There are 4 different words: calyx, corolla, ambition, gynoecium. In the corolla, the shape of the corolla and the proboscis of the insects or butterflies or moth, there is a co-evolution. Or the beaks of the bird's beak, it sucks the nectar, the corolla tube, and the shape of the flower, it may be funnel shaped or long, the corolla. So both are co-evolutionary. So this is the example of co-evolution. There are 3 types: mimicry, myrmecophily, as well as co-evolution. Then stick insect, you may see that stick insect which walking like a stick, that's also an example for this mimicry. Mimicry, myrmecophily, co-evolution or examples for co-evolutionary dynamics. So once again, let's review what you learned today. The biotic factors. Biotic factors are broadly classified into positive interaction, negative interaction. Under positive interaction, mutualism, commensalism. Negative interaction, predation, parasitism, competition and Amansalism. So all the definition, first learn this tablet column. Here the definitions, if you learn this tablet column, you get the definition as well as the examples. So very important 5-mark question. Prepare it well and draw all the diagrams in the class note.